The dog looks at her, looks at the container, and runs to it. There's food inside. Good dog. She does it again, points at a different container. The dog runs. No food this time. Third round. She points at a container. There's food in it. She knows there is. The dog knows she knows. And the dog doesn't move, just looks at her. 34 dogs went through this experiment. 34 dogs made the same choice. Not most of them. Every single one. We're going to come back to this moment in a bit. But first, I need to tell you what was actually happening inside those dogs' heads. Because it's not what you think, and it's not what most of the internet is going to tell you. If you search, "Can dogs sense bad people?" you'll get 100 articles saying yes, absolutely. Dogs have a sixth sense. They can read your energy. They just know. And look, some of that is built on real research. But it skips the interesting part, because your dog isn't psychic. They're not reading auras. What they're doing is, honestly, more impressive than that. You've felt this, right? Someone comes to your house and your dog does that thing. Not barking, not aggressive, just hangs back, watches, maybe sits a little closer to you than usual, and you can't explain it.
Design the perfect voice for your brand with 11 Labs.
But something in you goes, yeah, I see it too. That feeling isn't magic, and by the end of this, you'll know exactly what your dog is running when they do that, the actual machinery behind it. And I think it's going to change the way you watch them meet someone new. So what's actually happening when your dog sizes someone up? Think about the last time your dog met a stranger. In the first 2 or 3 seconds, before you've even finished saying hello, your dog has already started running a kind of assessment that would put most of us to shame. And it's not one thing. It's several things firing at once, so fast it looks like instinct. The first thing they're doing is reading the person's body, not their face, their whole body, the way their weight shifts when they walk in, whether their hands are tense or loose, whether their movement toward your dog is direct or curved. Dogs are extraordinarily sensitive to motion patterns, and a person who moves unpredictably or with tension registers differently than someone who's relaxed. Your dog noticed that before the person made eye contact with you. At the same time, they're running scent. A dog's nose is pulling chemical information you can't even perceive, and changes in human body chemistry that come with nervousness, aggression, or fear produce volatile organic compounds your dog absolutely detects. They're not diagnosing your guest's personality. They're reading the chemical weather of their body in real time. And then there's the layer most people miss entirely. Your dog is watching how that person interacts with you, the tone, the body language between the two of you, whether you tense up, whether you relax. Your dog has been studying your patterns for years, and a disruption in those patterns is information. None of these channels alone is enough to spot a bad person, but running together, body language, scent, and social observation, all in the first few seconds, they create something that looks, from the outside, like your dog just knows. They don't just know, they're working. Now, back to Kyoto. In 2015, a researcher named Akiko Takaoka wanted to test something specific. Do dogs automatically follow human pointing gestures, or do they actually evaluate the person doing the pointing? Here's how the experiment worked. A dog is in a room with 2 containers. An experimenter points at one. If there's food inside, the dog finds it. Great, trust established. Next round, the same experimenter points at the other container. The dog runs over. Empty. The experimenter has now lied, in the only language the dog understands. Gesture. Round 3. The experimenter points at a container that does have food. And this is the part I keep coming back to. The dog looks at the experimenter, looks at the container, and stays put. Not because they've lost interest in food, not because they're confused, because they've decided this particular human is not reliable. In one trial, one broken promise. And here's the detail that elevates this from interesting to kind of stunning. In the second experiment, Takaoka swapped in a new person for round 3. Same setup, same container, new human doing the pointing. The dogs followed immediately. They hadn't lost faith in pointing. They hadn't become generally suspicious. They had filed a complaint about one specific individual and moved on. Takaoka told the BBC she was surprised how quickly the dogs, her word, devalued the reliability of a human. And I love that phrasing. Devalued the reliability. Like your dog is running a credit score on everyone they meet. Which, honestly, they kind of are. John Bradshaw at the University of Bristol, who wasn't involved in the study, pointed out something worth sitting with. Dogs crave predictability. When someone behaves inconsistently, it doesn't just confuse them, it stresses them. Your dog isn't judging that person morally, they're protecting themselves from chaos. And that distinction matters more than you'd think. Your dog doesn't have a word for trust, but they can lose it in a single gesture, and they remember exactly who cost them. Let me give you something different before we go further, because that last study was about how dogs evaluate strangers. This one is about what happens when someone wrongs you. Same year, same university, different lab. Hitomi Chijiwa and her team at Kyoto set up a scenario where a dog watched their owner try to open a container and ask a nearby stranger for help. In one version, the stranger helped. In another, the stranger deliberately turned away, looked at the floor, refused. A third person just sat there the whole time, neutral. After the interaction, both the actor and the neutral person offered the dog a treat. Same treat, offered at the same time. Nobody looked at the dog. They wanted to eliminate any subtle cueing. When the stranger had helped their owner, the dogs took treats from both people. No preference. Fine. Everyone's cool. But when the stranger had refused to help their owner, the dogs would not take food from that person. They walked past the offered treat, past food, and went to the neutral stranger instead. I need you to understand what that means. A dog turned down a free treat from someone who had been unkind to their person, not to them, to their person, in a situation that had absolutely no direct benefit to the dog. Nobody was fighting over the dog's food. Nobody touched the dog. The dog was just watching, and they made a choice. The researchers called this third-party affective evaluation. It had never been documented in a non-primate species before, and it revealed something the first study didn't. Dogs aren't just tracking who's reliable, they're tracking who's kind, and specifically, who's kind to the people they love. Here's the kicker though. The dogs didn't reward helpfulness, they punished unhelpfulness. The helpful stranger got no bonus. The unhelpful one got shunned. Researchers call this a negativity bias. Dogs weight bad behavior more heavily than good behavior, which, if you think about it for even a second, makes perfect evolutionary sense. Knowing who to avoid keeps you alive. Knowing who to thank is a luxury. Your dog doesn't care who's generous, but they are keeping a very specific list of who refused to help you, and they don't forget. Okay, one more, and this is the one that genuinely stopped me. A team at the University of Vienna wanted to know something that sounds almost absurd. Can dogs tell the difference between a person who's wrong and a person who's lying? They tested 260 dogs. Here's the setup. A person hides a treat in one of two buckets. Then a second person moves the treat to the other bucket. In one condition, the first person watches the switch happen, so they know the treat has moved. In the other condition, the first person leaves the room during the switch. They genuinely don't know. Then the first person comes back and points to the original bucket, the empty one. Now, from the dog's perspective, the instruction is identical in both cases. Someone is pointing at the wrong bucket, but here's what happened. When the person had been in the room and seen the switch, meaning they were pointing to the wrong bucket on purpose, dogs were significantly more likely to ignore them. They went to the correct bucket on their own, but when the person had genuinely missed the switch, when they were wrong but not lying, the dogs followed their pointing more often. They gave the benefit of the doubt to the person who didn't know better. I'm going to let that land for a second, because the implication is that dogs aren't just tracking behavior. They may be tracking intent. Not, this person pointed wrong, but this person pointed wrong and they knew it. The researchers found something else too. Breed mattered. Retrievers, border collies, and other breeds historically selected for cooperative work with humans were better at detecting the deception. Terriers, bred for independent work, chasing things down holes, making their own decisions, were the only breed group that behaved like human toddlers, following the liar more often in the intentional condition, which honestly made me laugh a little. If your terrier trusts everyone, that's not gullibility. That's centuries of breeding saying, I'll check it out myself, thanks. Somewhere in the last 10,000 years of sleeping beside us, guarding our doors, watching us interact with every person who walked in, dogs didn't just learn to read what we do, they started reading why. Now, I promised I'd be honest with you, and this is where I keep that promise. In 2025, just last year,